Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. We are back tonight for a Match Week 19 review, joined by the lads, as per usual, Mark and Peter, checking in after another fantastic weekend's worth of Bundesliga action. So we shall be running our way through the most exciting games, those games that had impacts at the top and bottom end of the table. Just before we do, of course, we have to get ourselves kickstarted by the fact that we are in partnership with both Bundesliga Boxes and Bulinews, who Peter writes for. So make sure you get yourselves across to Bundesliga Boxes to try and get a hold of any spare boxes that they've got. I think the last batch has actually just run out. So see if there are any new ones maybe coming out or any extra ones that they have in stock. And of course, get over to Bulinews for everything from long rights, tactics, transfer gossip, and everything else in between. Make sure to smash a like on the video if you can. Join us in the live comments for any questions you may have from this match week that has just gone, as well as smashing that red button and subscribing to the channel. And Mark, do you want to just run us through the promo or another competition that we are doing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, obviously the Football League Weekly, which is our partner show really here on Over the Bar YouTube channel, they're doing a surprise shirt giveaway actually. So obviously this is like it's a startup company from what I can gather. And it's basically like they give away random football shirts, but unlike Bundesliga Boxes, not only German football shirts, it's just general football shirts from all over the world. So you could pretty much get your football shirts from, I know that Dave, the guy who does the promo, like literally you can get them from pretty much every country in the world. So I very much recommend it. Check out our Twitter, which you can see at the bottom, at Over the Bar FB or at Over the Bar Extra. You can see it advertised on there, and you can get, if you click the link, then you can get the giveaway as well. And you can also get a discount as well. Actually, you can also get a 10% discount by following the link. So remember to check that out on our Twitter, and we'll probably stick it below on the YouTube after the video as well. So yeah, remember to check that out.
Smashing stuff. So straight into business then gents. And as per usual, as it seems recent weeks, we will be keeping you updated with the current DFB Pokal match, which Frankfurt are already winning, thanks to a goal from Randall Kolo-Muani, as per usual, continuing his fine form. So Frankfurt are 1-0 up early on in the Pokal. So, gents, we're going to start with Bayern back. So on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, they responded in kind after all their title contenders and challengers put down a marker for them, and they got their first win since the restart in the Bundesliga after 3 straight draws, seeing off Wolfsburg in a highly entertaining match, but one that maybe people were just flicking through the goals and seeing it was a 4-2 victory. People might think pretty standard and easy win for Bayern, but Peter, maybe the stats tell us something slightly different.
Every stat tells you something different. Of course, the X goals being the stat that we reference usually first in football these days. Wolfsburg defeated Bayern by a score of, I believe it was 263 to 0.84. Almost a 3-1 difference in the X goals. Also in possession, also in passing stats, of some real relevance sprints, Wolfsburg were able to defeat Bayern by a 2-1 ratio. So this was a game. It was a hell of a game. I hope as many people had a chance to catch it as they possibly could. But this was a game in which Wolfsburg absolutely deserved to feel hard done by for not winning. Of course, they only have themselves to blame for not converting the chances. But for the 3rd consecutive league match, I'm not ashamed to say that Julian Nagelsmann got out-tacticked. Got out-tacticked by Stefan Baumgart in Köln. Against Köln, I should say. He got out-tacticked by Oliver Glasner in the Frankfurt draw, the 1-1 draw. And Niko Kovac, through 3 in-game tactical shifts, He started off in a sort of an odd-looking 3-3-2-2. He then broke up his back three, took off Maxence Lacroix, and started and put in a 4-1-4-1. And then after Joshua Kimmich got sent off on double yellows and Wolfsburg actually had the man advantage, he went with a 5-2-3. So tactically speaking, he was on the nose. Finishing-wise, Wolfsburg were unable to put it away. If you're wondering how Bayern scored 4 goals, it was through some moments of magic from Kingsley Coman, who is in excellent form, and Jamal Musiala, who went ahead and took on the entire outfield and walked the ball into the back of the net himself, as he's prone to do on occasion. So although the Pokal win for Bayern last midweek, and I apologize for my tip last week once again, and we'll apologize on the watch along, but I'll apologize again. Although Nagelsmann really earned his paycheck midweek and put out a great tactical system, a back three with Joe Cancelo, in the league, he's still targeted and he's still being beaten by his opposing head coaches. So the title race is absolutely on, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were elaborating more there, Peter.
I can always give you more, but you know, there's 2 of us here, so
there is, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think based on what we saw in the Pokal, it seemed that Bayern were almost offended by the fact that people think that there is a title race, which, as you say, Peter, I think there is a bigger title race than possibly we've had since doing the show. Mark, going forwards now, Bayern of scoring goals again, but as Peter alluded to, has Nagelsmann still got to settle into the restart from a tactics point of view? There's still pressure on him with those free draws anyway, and the pressure of winning the Bundesliga, winning the Pokal, and doing well in Europe. So as the games come thick and fast, Nagelsmann's obviously got to be able to prove that he is an elite level head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty worried for them, to be honest. I mean, from a Bundesliga perspective, I think it's great news because this is I agree, on paper, a 4-2 win at Wolfsburg looks really good, especially a side that have been good at home for a while. But I did watch the game all the way through, and they just weren't that good, to be honest, in the match. And, they started really well, but the first goal was a little bit lucky via Coman, wasn't it, really? I mean, the goalkeeper, Casillas, misjudged the cross and probably was easily... They should have avoided that goal, basically. Should have had enough quality to either get it away or save it. Obviously, a moment of magic from the brilliant cross from Cancelo as well, and brilliantly put home by Coman. But, I mean, after that, it was pretty much all Wolfsburg for me. And I think even if you look towards the end of the game when it was 4-2, I think with about 5 minutes left, there was a goal disallowed as well. I don't know if you remember that one, but they could have got it back to 4-3. I thought they were going to give the goal. They actually disallowed it for a foul from Baku on Goretzka. But for me, it looked like a bit of 50-50, really, that one. I think both players were kind of fouling each other. So for me, they were a little bit unlucky with that one. That could have been 4-3 with 10 minutes to go. So, they could easily have drawn the game after all, really, even if Wolfsburg missed a lot of chances through the match. I think, he's getting out tactic. A lot of the players just don't seem to know the roles in that team at the moment for me. And it's just things aren't good at the minute for Bayern Munich. And I agree that they were brilliant against Mainz on the Wednesday evening, but this was a lucky win at the end of the day. They could easily have drawn or lost this game, but at the end of the day, it is a win. They've got this massive tie against Paris Saint-Germain coming up in, is it next week, the first leg, or the week after? It's getting closer anyway. And for me, that's the kind of match that Julian Nagelsmann is going to be judged on, ultimately. I think if they lose that two-legged tie, he could end up being out of a job come the summer, to be honest with you. And I think that is the problem that he's facing, because I think tactically he's not been great. They have a very good, well-invested squad, which has been obviously bulked up in the January window with the brilliant signing of Cancelo, who's already proved his quality in the first 2 games. But there's a lot of players in there that just don't seem to be on form at the minute, specifically the defence. De Ligt has not overly impressed me, to be honest. I know Upamecano was missing for this game, but there's a lot of problems in there at the moment. Even Jan Sommer has not really overly impressed me so far in a Bayern Munich shirt. He doesn't seem to have that same control over the defense. There's a lot of mutterings behind closed doors as well that potentially Neuer and Nagelsmann don't get on as well. I don't know if you read that.
That's not behind closed doors at all. As a matter of fact, that's pretty big news in German football circles. Yeah. Manuel Neuer called up two of Germany's biggest heavy-hitting journalists, Raphael Honigstein of The Athletic and Philipp Seldorf of the Süddeutsche Zeitung, and invited them over to his sort of Bavarian Alp retreat there, and threw kind of a self-pity party for himself in the German estimation. I mean, really what he did was, as some people may know, Bayern parted company with goalkeeping coach Toni Tapalovic, who was Neuer's sort of red-shirted sports psychologist. Keepers are always very, very particular about their goalkeeping coach because it's such a psychological position. And, he conducted this interview and said in no uncertain terms at all that he felt like his heart had been ripped out, like he had never seen such a crass move ever done in football administration, and said that it amounted to a kick to him when he was down. So he was already down and he got a drop kick to the ribs, more or less, is what he's insinuating. I don't see Manuel Neuer continuing with Bayern through the summer, I think. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that Nagelsmann did not get along with Tapalovic. Also, Alexander Nübel was reluctant to return back from loan because he didn't want to play behind Neuer again. Sommer is actually signed on a 2-year contract. Neuer's contract expires at the end of next season. He's considered well past his prime in terms of who Germans want actually in the national team goal. Kevin Trapp from Eintracht Frankfurt is considered the better choice at this point, and Ter Stegen has also made his case. So this is a very public dust-up in which Oliver Kahn, a former goalkeeper himself, has said, who is not prone to, he did his whining when Jens Lehmann replaced him. But he's basically said that Neuer was out of line. So is Hasan Salihamidzic, so is Herbert Heiner, so is everybody associated with Bayern. So this is a dust-up that they didn't need at a moment where they are, let's face it, facing real challengers for the first time in years. And the biggest problem with Bayern in the defense, De Ligt, as you pointed out, is dipping in form. Benjamin Pavard, he had to play center back, of course. Can we even consider him a center back anymore at this point? I mean, I don't remember when he was a center back, to be honest with you, for either club or for country.
Stuttgart, I think.
Oh, okay, maybe. So I wouldn't say that they're in crisis. No. Back three that we saw against Mainz, that's probably the wave of the future. I think that probably Cancelo's arrival may push Alphonso Davies, who hasn't been in the greatest form, out of the lineup. And Nagelsmann probably rolls with a back three, using Kimmich as the bolt-lock sweeper, and Cancelo and Coman as the wingbacks. And he builds upon that Pokal success, and they're still going to win a lot of matches, but other teams are going to keep pace. So that's what makes the Bundesliga exciting.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then nothing really to worry about from a Wolfsburg point of view. 3 losses in a row, obviously, if you include the Pokal inside of that. But, naturally, so much to take from the match on Sunday. I think the most shots that Bayern have faced all season, that Wolfsburg managed to get off. Obviously, we've already spoken about the XG, so do we expect them to bounce back pretty quickly in the games to come and still keep on charging up the table?
Considering that they're playing Schalke on Friday night, yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to completely douse Schalke's hopes after their another fine 0-0 draw. So brilliant stuff. So we'll move on and talk about the Dortmund Freiburg game. And before we start to get into the details of the match itself, I think we just have to say just bravo to Seb Haller. Just the timings of everything is kind of almost aligned with him scoring his first goal for the club, in front of the yellow wall on World Cancer Day. Just an astounding effort from him to return to the fold. And
what did you gentlemen think of the halfway circle? Did you check that out?
Sorry, what's that?
What they did to center circle.
I saw it with the tumor on the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
With a tumor, yes, to reflect a testicular tumor. They did.
Yeah, it was a superb story, wasn't it? I mean, it's like, and I think he's really improved the team as well. Obviously, we saw in the Hinrunde, it was mostly Anthony Modeste starting games, and let's be honest, he didn't exactly do himself any justice really in the yellow shirt, did he at all? I think he only got one league goal in the end, which was pretty measly considering he's a BBB centre forward. But I think, obviously, I think that was his third start this weekend. He's looked good in every game. I think he was fantastic in this particular match. Obviously, the match itself, there was one moment really which decided the game ultimately, and it was that Sildelia sending off after just 16 minutes. Clumsy from the young fullback, really, wasn't it? I mean, the second foul was a little bit soft in my eyes, but it probably was a booking. I think he kind of fell into him a little bit, but I can understand why Christian Streich was really annoyed, and he did later go on to say that the referee should have been wearing a yellow shirt, I think, which obviously got him his marching orders as well in the second half. One of the big characters of the German game, isn't he? But I can understand why they would have been a bit disappointed to get a booking for that second challenge because, it was very early on in the match. He'd only made 2 challenges and, but ultimately that was what won the game, I think, because in the first half, I thought Freiburg were great. They didn't do very much, but they were very tenacious. They stayed in the game. And obviously Lucas Höhler smashing in the equaliser right on the halfway point, which was amazing, really. The journeyman, really, a bit of a cult hero in Freiburg as well, smashing them level on the halfway line. But then, the second half, they just fell away, didn't they? Obviously, they conceded the early goal in the second period, and then it was that man, Halle, who managed to bang in the third goal, wasn't it? After just 51 minutes, the header coming in to make it 3-1, and by that point, the game was pretty much over. But got to say, Julian Brandt got the goal of the game. That was a cracking strike from him, like the bending, almost looked like Roberto Carlos style, didn't it? Absolutely brilliant effort from Brandt, who isn't every Dortmund's favourite player, let's be honest, but he played well in this particular match. But, Dortmund are hot at the moment. I think, the first half wasn't great against 10 men, let's be honest, but the second half, they really made up for that, and they won the game very convincingly in the end.
Yeah, it was an unbalanced game after that red card so early on, and Dortmund picked up and were a lot better in the second half. But you have to think that the Schlotterbeck goal is such an acute angle. That's kind of like a one in a million kind of effort. So, you take that out, and then the equalizer is typical Dortmund defending. Ricochets everywhere. No great communication. No one picking up who they should be. And Holler does well to smash in the opportunity. But they did pick up and scored some nice goals after that. The Brandt strike is great from distance. Impressed by Adeyemi. Nice bit of build-up play, obviously involving Bellingham and Gio Reyna. Another goal for the American, picking up some fine form once more. Really tidy finish, actually. I really liked the way he kind of just daisy cutted it in with the side foot. Very neatly done, although for a few bodies perhaps, so maybe unsighted. Peter, anything that you picked up from a tactical point of view in that game? I guess Streich, is how
it was the tactical focus feature of my column. I had pre-selected it prior to the weekend, and of course it's always a shame when your tactical focus feature has a sending off that early in the match, because it's not exactly real football when you've got a 10v9 in the outfield there. But I found a lot to say about it, particularly the play of Julian Brandt. He was amazing, not just his goal, but what he was able to do on the right-hand side, what he was able to do off of set pieces, some of the magic footwork that I saw from him. I didn't know Julian Brandt was capable of that, even in his early days. He with Leverkusen, when he was supposed to be the next big thing on the German national team, he showed potential, but he didn't show what he showed us on Saturday. And he is really coming into his own. Finally, it's been 3+ seasons with Dortmund now. It shows what a good coach Edin Terzic is, that he can bring the best out of players like that, and has really breathed a new life into Julian Brandt. Karim Adeyemi scored once again. Now got a 2-match scoring streak. There are so many. Rafael Guerrero looked amazing. Where did that come from? I mean, and Marius Wolf was good. I've already forgotten about Julian Ryerson, who's been out for the last couple of matches. Dortmund are on a serious roll. I joked with Brandt and Wolf that maybe Erling Haaland left a little something behind for the Blondies with their hairstyle choices. But no, they are incredibly good, and I believe that they might be for real this time. And I've said that for the 1,347th time in the last decade. But truthfully, I don't see Bochum, Dortmund, the Pokal fixture. We have a question from Balum there about Bayern versus Bochum next weekend. Probably not going to be very pretty. Bayern tend to overrule, although Bochum did win at home against Bayern in the Hinrunde.
4-2. I remember that one.
They did 4-2 last year. Dortmund Bochum, the Pokal match tomorrow night on the Kastrop, with lots of Herbert Grönemeyer playing under the lights, is going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going to make a tip on that, but I suggest everybody tune into that. I don't think that Bochum stand a chance against Bayern next week, but Bochum in the Pokal fixture tomorrow could be a close match.
Yeah. Speaking of the Pokal, Darmstadt have hit back with 2 goals. So they now lead Frankfurt in Frankfurt thanks to 2 goals in 2 minutes by Honsack. So there we are. Potential for an upset in the Pokal as things stand. Commenting from Klee, Karen Adeyemi on strikes. Press conference, he's retired. Oh, blimey. Yeah.
Hey, one doesn't disrespect Saint Christian Streich. He knows better than that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Picking up on Freiburg then, because so 4 games since the restart, they've won 1 of them. They've conceded 13 goals in those 4 matches. Obviously, previous to that, they'd only conceded 17 in 15 matches. What's gone wrong for Freiburg? Have they just thrown in a couple of horror performances and need to just kind of reset a little bit? And there's been obviously this tactical choice to leave out Vincenzo Grifo. Not necessarily saying that Grifo is the reason why they've conceded X amount of goals, obviously, because that's a silly comment. But what's been going on at Freiburg in these last few weeks?
Well, what happened was that Streich, the team had an excellent January training camp. They really looked good. But then they lost 0-6 to Wolfsburg on the first match day back from the break. And so Streich had to ditch his back 4 and reconfigure a back 3. And it never really looked good. It produced some improved results. They drew against Frankfurt and they won against Augsburg, but they were never dominant in either match for a long period of time. And Streich, I don't know what he was thinking on Saturday. He did not start Gregoric. He started Doan as the Doan and Daniel Kofi Kjera as the 2 strikers in a really, really conservative spread out kind of 3-5-2 or 3-3-2-2 if you prefer. It's almost like he was conceding defeat before kickoff, and perhaps that's because he always does bad away at Dortmund. So he was in for a cranky day no matter what, I think. And Sedillia sending off, I'm probably going to side with Schroeder on that, because he did commit 3 fouls. He was warned once, he was booked once, and then he was sent off. and there were a lot of Schröder, the referee, Robert Schröder, he had to intervene a lot because things were really intense and really physical there. When I first heard Streich make the yellow shirt comment, I thought he was talking about all of the yellow cards. It didn't register with me that he was talking about a Dortmund shirt. But they did win today against Sandhausen. They traveled north to in Baden-Württemberg there, and they played the Sandmen. Pretty much an expected result, but and they only got the 2 goals rather late. But I mean they're not top 4 material. I don't think. I think we've learned that in these 4 rounds back from the break. They're not title contenders. Another Europa League campaign seems to be in the cards. They're just out of the discussion for the time being. Not out of the, they're not a mid-table side. They should get up to 5th, 6th, perhaps the Conference League place as well. But they're just. He had to do some tactical tweaking. Eventually Streich will make it work. That's what he does.
Yeah, fully confident in that. So let's break up the title race chat just for a little while, and we'll come back to the likes of Union and co in a short while and talk about a match that was highly entertaining, but for reasons at the opposite end of the table, where Bochum hit poor Hoffenheim for 5 more in a obviously a very impressive performance, a 5th home win in a row, which I think is the first time they've done that since 1976. So not bad going in that regards. And it was another hat trick of assists, and this time it was from Antwi Achi, and he was the provider for a tap in for Hoffmann early on after there had been plenty of chances anyway for the home side. Masovic and Hoffmann both had chances. He then laid a lovely cutback for Philipp Forster, who never would have done that in a Stuttgart shirt.
As a Stuttgart man,
a composed, clean strike to make it 2-0. I believe it was his birthday as well, I think. So we're not too far apart. And then a third goal for Asano. I mean, obviously it's an assist by definition, but Asano does all the work, powering through a non-existent Hoffenheim defense to make it 3-0 and pretty much finish the match as a contest. Although Hoffenheim did make 4 changes, guys, and made a positive start to the second half with Baumgartner, but never materialised into anything. And Bochum got a tremendously important win, and Hoffenheim are still dragging their heels, just to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Brighton Writer paid for it with his job as well, because, I mean, I think he realised at half-time, didn't he, that enough was enough, really. Obviously, Rosen, his sporting director as well, was also under pressure, but he basically made the decision to fire Brighton Writer. I think it was on Monday morning, wasn't it? Which is not a surprise at all, really, because only 5 wins in 19 games is just woeful at the end of the day. With a side of their quality, they've always been backed with financial power. And what's been surprising me is their defensive lapses recently, because I think your favorite guy, Peter, Brooks, he's been absolutely dire since he signed, hasn't he? Like, I think every performance has been poor so far. He was heading back passes short to defenders, and it just wasn't his day at all. And let's be honest, this move to Hoffenheim hasn't worked out so far. I know it's still only 3-4 games in, but let's give him time. But it's not working out. He's gone into a side that are playing with very, very little confidence at the moment. And, Kabak as well, he's meant to be the leader in that team. He was also signed for big money in the summer, and he's not been very good either. He actually started quite well, the Turk, but in recent months, he's just not been doing very well at all, has he? But yeah, let's give some credit to Bochum as well, because they were absolutely brilliant. They're a side at home who really like to play some good football, some kind of rock and roll football, as Jurgen Klopp would call it. They play a lot of attacking play. play. Like they really kind of try to take it to teams, high press. And, you know, a lot of the forwards, obviously we were worried how they were going to score goals this season, but they've not had problems at home in particular. And, you know, I think Andrea J is a good player. We saw some of him last season as well, but that hat-trick of assists was superb, especially the first one was a fantastic ball in. I do like Philip Hoffmann as well. I think he's a goal scorer at this level. I think that's 7 league goals that he's managed now, which is really, really good for a side that have been down at the bottom for most of the season. And obviously Asano as well. It was great to see them both start as well, because I do like Asano. Obviously the man, the tiger who scored the goal against Germany as well in the World Cup. I'm sure Peter won't remember that one fondly, but, you know, a very good player as well for Bochum. Another quality Japanese player in the Bundesliga. And all in all, it was a brilliant performance from the home side for me.
Yeah, it's Jaguar, Takuma Jaguar.
Jaguar, sorry, not the Tiger.
He might have actually ended Manuel Neuer's national team career with that goal as well. So link back to that. Incredibly impressive for Bochum, whom when we were having our chat to preview the Rückrunde, I really said I love their signings. I love how they've put this together. They've got these gentlemen here. And I don't believe that they're really in the relegation discussion anymore. Okay, in 2 weeks, I may reserve the right to change my opinion because things are like that. Philip Hoffmann, I think, was a great signing. This is a guy who's been playing in the Zweite Liga for many, many years, most recently with the Karlsruher Sport Club, but also Eintracht Braunschweig and Spielvereinigung Greuther Fürth. And he's just one of those players who's gotten better with age. He was ready to make that next step up to the top. He got off to a rather lousy start in the top level, but now, as you said, he has 7 league goals. So I think they have an excellent target man there, and they have a lot of talent on the bench. You know, I made Bochum one of the focuses of my tactics column with the draw up and things like that. Andrea J and Jordi Osei Tutu. I think we could have these 2 hyphenated wingers.
Great name.
Anyway, that was Andrea J. No, wait, that was Osei Tutu. Wait, okay. You know, the announcers will have trouble keeping up because they're both pacey. And Asano can, of course, play great on the wings too. Let's not forget the Filipino typhoon, Gerrit Holtmann, Zola. Yeah, he can play on the wings there too. Pierre Kunde-Melong on the bench. Kevin Schlotterbeck was on the bench for this one. We'll see how he does against younger brother Nico in the Pokal match tomorrow. That should be quite interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, they really are a good team. Hoffenheim are refuse. They're garbage. They're putrid. Brighton Reitzer, absolutely, you know, his tactics were beyond absurd. I mean, he had Christoph Baumgartner playing as a wingback in the first half, for crying out loud. I mean, he was just throwing anything to the wall and hoping that it sticks. Unfortunately, Hoffenheim not really part of the relegation discussion either. It's been confirmed, not officially confirmed, but Kicker and Bild are both reporting today that Pellegrino Matarazzo is going to take over Hoffenheim, and he will get them straight because they have enough talent to do so. And probably Rory wishes he was still at Stuttgart at this point because
yeah. Don't get me started. Yes, so very entertaining game, and it looks like it is an entertaining game in the Pokal tonight as well, as we put on screen. But for anyone that's listening and not able to access the screen, it is now 2-2. Rafa Bore set up by Goetze, so 2-2 just before half time, as reported there by Klee. So probably a couple of other games that we'll look into in a bit more detail before the evening is out. And so we'll maybe go back to a team that got themselves to the summit of the Bundesliga, albeit momentarily, as Union Berlin left it rather late to edge past Mainz, you know, in a game that was scrappy in parts, I think, and you know, Kevin Behrens was able to scramble home the opener after a nice ball in by Seguin, and Mainz tried to get themselves back into it and were kind of huffing and puffing, but I think obviously the opportunity they were gifted was from this VAR call. So it'd be interesting to see both of your reactions to that call first and foremost. I think I'm for the decision. Personally speaking, I think it was a movement of the arm. So I'll go to you both in a sec about that. To which Ingvartsen put it home duly. And then what changed the match was Urs Fischer reacting very quickly and sending out the heroes to be Thorsby, but finally Jordan Pifuk, the return of first goal since Matchday 7. Wow. And that was probably a long time ago in terms of the calendar, maybe not so long in terms of the match days, but he obviously would be thrilled with the lovely finish, just kind of walked onto it on the half volley for his 4th goal of the season, winning it late on for the Berlin club. And yeah, it took them temporarily back to the top of the Bundesliga, which is just utterly ridiculous. But obviously Bayern are back up there now. Gents, first and foremost, was it a handball?
Yeah, for me it was. Yeah, I think we often see a lot of softish handball penalties now. I think we saw one for Stuttgart the week before as well against Leipzig, where there was no real danger from the ball, but it did touch his hand, and it was kind of purposeful movement towards the ball. So it's got to be a penalty ultimately. It's always frustrating when your team concedes a penalty like that. Like, I hate it when my team concedes those kind of penalties. But yeah, it was definitely a penalty for me. But it was quite ironic because Mainz had pretty much done nothing in the whole game really until then. You know, I think their XG up until that point was about 0.2 for the whole match. They'd only had a few like crosses coming in, not very much at all. But then obviously in Vartsen, he is a good penalty taker. He comfortably put it away. But I mean, what character from Union, you know, because that was after 78 minutes, the equaliser. They only had another 15 minutes or so to go and win it. And it was a really good goal as well. I thought it was a great finish from Jordan. You know, I'm a little bit surprised to see Thorsby as well not starting games, because he's a really good player in my view, a great midfielder, you know. But we do see a lot of rotation in the Bundesliga. And obviously Union did play in midweek as well against Wolfsburg in the Cup. But yeah, I mean, fantastic win from them again. It wasn't their best performance, you know, it definitely wasn't, but you got to win ugly sometimes, haven't you, if you want to finish in that top 4 or provide a title race, and that's exactly what Union did in the end.
I agree with you both that it was a penalty. I've written several articles about this, as the German FA has been quite fastidious about what they consider to be a handball penalty and whatnot. And when there've been mistakes made, they've actually admitted their mistakes, and they've published reports saying why that these were mistakes. What happened with Paul Seguin is that he made his body bigger with the use of his arm, and that falls under the classification of a handball penalty. I'm glad we got that, because it actually really woke the match up. The match was immensely entertaining in the final minutes. It was 3 substitutes combined on the goal there. Thorsby, Gieselmann, and the American Jordan, whom, as you correctly pointed out, hadn't scored since Matchday 7. So he ended a big goal-scoring drought. Shouldn't be enough to supplant Kevin Behrens as the starting striker.
Yep.
Behrens, of course, also scored in this one, and signed a new contract. Wrote a story about that. I thought it was really interesting that Behrens, who was a career second league player, and Christian Groß over at Bremen, who was playing for the reserves at the age of 29, you know, they became late bloomers. They enjoyed late renaissances, resurgences, and they find success. I always love stories like that. You're never too old. Never too old.
Well, the Renaissance man who we were talking about last, was it last week or the week before, on this Will almost got them back into it, took things into his own hands, but wasn't quite able to do so. Speaking of handballs, we might come to this if we have time. Do we think Stuttgart should have had another one late in with the but if we're talking about making the body bigger, I think, to be fair, I mean, I was, you know, not particularly pleased or half watching by the end of it, because it didn't look like we were getting a goal for heaven or money. But the player for me makes himself bigger, you know, and has the arm clearly above the heads, which is marked as being an unnatural position. So why was that not looked at from a VA point of view, Peter? Is that something that's going to be written up as a mistake, or am I just being...
I look forward to finding out, as a matter of fact. I mean, if it is a mistake, the DFB will admit it. They grade the referees. The German press grades our match officials, and we're not above admitting that there was a mistake necessarily. So, I mean, I would have to take another look at it myself. I don't think I can weigh in on one way or the other. I mean, I'm aware of the play, but I haven't seen it 4 or 5 times replay. Perhaps, Mark, what would your views on the matter be?
Yeah, I was convinced he was going to give the penalty because I was watching the game, actually, and I was actually talking to my dad on the phone at the time, and I said it's 2-0 to Werder because my dad bets on Bundesliga as well, and he backed Werder on our recommendation, by the way, Peter. But yeah, and then I was just going to say, it's going to be 2-1 in a minute because they're going to get a penalty. So I was convinced they were going to give it, to be honest. But then all of a sudden, they waved it away. So I think that is one thing that I find frustrating about football in general these days, that there seems to be no consistency in the decisions at all. Like, I think the Bundesliga is better than certain other parts of football, definitely. I think the Bundesliga is a lot more consistent, but it is a frustrating thing in general. Like, why does one team get a penalty but another doesn't? Do you know what I mean? It's just, I just find that really frustrating, you know. And it was the same for me with the decision on the Baku foul on Goretzka. I just didn't see that as enough in that to disallow the goal, you know. For me, I'm a big fan of the benefit the attacker as well. I do like that rule. Like, if there's a goal scored, I think there has to be a real good reason to disallow it for me. And I think a few results did go against teams on the Sunday games, but you know, I think ultimately Stuttgart was still a loss, really, because it was quite late on. I think there was only like 2 or 3 minutes to go. So I think, and I definitely think Werder Bremen deserved to win the game in that one. They scored 2 good goals. But yeah, for me, it was a penalty, actually, that one.
Yeah, completely agree with what you say, Mark. I think Werder controlled the game well after the, unfortunate and really disappointing injury for Guirassy, and he'll be missing now, and Stuttgart don't have the opportunity to replace him, as we were talking off air, Peter, weren't we? But as the window has slammed shut, and from an offensive point of view, Stuttgart have been struggling all season anyway, and where Guirassy has been helping the team out, but where a goal's going to come from now? I mean, you've got Pfeiffer, who had done well with Darmstadt in the Zweite Bundesliga. Pereira, who they signed, pretty sure on a free, who's done absolutely nothing. Thiago Tomas is injured, and is kind of a differential player who can make a difference. And again, we're talking about Silas, who just hasn't been the same. A bit of excitement around Furyk, but his end product is hit and miss. So I genuinely cannot see, unless it's Mavropanos banging in a header, but he's now making mistakes left, right, and center.
Yeah. How about that gift to Jens Stage on his birthday, no less?
Quite. So plenty to mull over for Labadia. What on earth can fix, other than when they possibly play Schalke and Hertha?
You have no center forward. You have no target man on that team, and the only, as we were talking off air, the only potential, sort of positive development down the road could be if Sosa and Silas are fit. Silas plays better advanced on the right wing, working a synchronized split stagger with Sosa, who also can creep up that flank. That still doesn't solve the issue of who's in the middle. You have nobody in the middle to aim for. When you had Sasha Kalajic, you didn't even have to aim for him. I mean, he was so long that there was a cross of dubious accuracy could still be put away by him.
Sure.
So I suppose that's probably a good segue into the relegation race talk, if you want to talk about it, because Stuttgart and Hertha, 2 traditional clubs, 2 clubs that were trying to get comfortable with being regular top tier sides again, look to be headed down once more.
Yeah, I think I'd be shocked if the bottom three change now. And I know there's so much distance to go. But even now, the 3 points from Stuttgart in obviously the relegation playoff place to Hoffenheim and Bochum seems like a chasm because of the fact that Stuttgart can only get these, hard fought draws. And Hertha are all over the place. Schalke are, so far have done well to get a couple of 0-0 draws, and there've been some positives in those performances, but still a long way away from any kind of optimism you'd kind of feel. So, yeah, a long way to go. But for me, the bottom three as it stands, I'd be shocked if it changed. Really, I would. I don't know about you two, but yeah, that's the pessimism in me already from a fan. I guess.
Yeah, they look like the three poorest sides, definitely. But as you say, I'm not convinced it's good for the Bundesliga, because obviously Schalke is one of the biggest clubs in the country. Hertha Berlin is the capital club that everyone wanted to do better than what they're doing, really, because obviously Berlin, to have a good football club, is really important for the Bundesliga, although Union are doing a pretty good job at the moment to replace that. And then obviously VfB Stuttgart as well, which is a very, very well-supported club down there in Baden-Württemberg. But yeah, I mean, I can't see a worse team than them at the moment, because obviously we mentioned Bochum are looking really, really good, especially at home. They're going to pick up results. They look like the kind of side that can win a lot of games at home. Like Augsburg don't look like a bottom three side. They look solid and they've got quality up front. Even Hoffenheim are probably looking the most likely, actually, at the minute, that could get dropped into it, to be honest, because they look really poor. But as Peter mentioned, I think if they get a better coach in, then they should go clear, really. But, as for Hertha in the game against Frankfurt, I mean, that was as easy as a 3-0 win as you're going to get. I didn't even think Frankfurt didn't hit the top form in that game at all, or even come close to it, really. I mean, the first goal was obviously a penalty. The second one was a good strike by Muani, who has got 2 goals, again, up to 9 goals for the season. I think he's got 10 or 11 assists as well, which is incredible. But yeah, I mean, it was just so easy. After that, the game just died, didn't it? After 2-0, it was after 20, 25 minutes, the game was just a non-event, really. And it was pretty much the last kick of the game when they finally made it 3-0, really. But I mean, that was just too easy, really, for Frankfurt. I know Frankfurt are a good side and the kind of team that can win games without playing the best, but you've got to fight. They've only got 15 games left to save the proverbial bacon, and they're just not looking like they're going to be able to do it at the moment. And Schalke are actually possibly looking more likely at the minute than Hertha, incredibly, because, they got a very, very hard-earned draw, which, by the way, Peter, what a tip that was. You tipped that 0-0. Yeah, you'd have made a lot of people rich on that one, I think. Yeah, I was convinced that Gladbach had hammered them, to be honest. But yeah, it was a very, very hard-earned and deserved point in the end for me.
Gladbach, not a very good team, not a very good football team, though. The midfield, I would say one of the biggest disappointments from a German fan perspective has been Julian Weigl. Since he was to the Bundesliga, he's not a good midfield flight director, and he makes far too many errors. Christoph Kramer at the 10, that's got to stop.
What about the young man Kone? Because when me and Mark did a watch along, probably our first one, I think it was, Mark, and he was man of the match probably, and it was so exciting.
Yeah. He could stand with Kramer could probably be a better partner for him than Weigl, but they want to use Weigl. They want to get Weigl back into form. He's sort of a big name acquisition. Fox 4-2-3-1. We talked about how it overachieved against Hoffenheim being in the state that they are. So yeah, 2 bad teams is why I tipped that 0-0 draw. Hertha could have come away with 3 points. They did generate some chances towards the end. They did. When we talk about Hertha, oh, good Lord. I mean, Florian Niederlechner, which Mark and I were talking about during the watch-along, not necessarily a player who wants to be there, was a total bust in his starting debut. A big tactical change from Sandro Schwarz at the half. He brought on the only acquisition that Hertha were able to bring in besides Niederlechner, Sejersi. And he sort of ran the midfield reasonably well. We got some interesting comments from Kevin Prince Boateng in the mixed zone afterwards. He was confident that the team can avoid, that his hometown team of Charlottenburg, Quadrant of Berlin, can avoid relegation. And he also said he was disappointed that the Frankfurt fans didn't boo or whistle him when he came onto the pitch. He took that as a personal affront. That was a So, yeah, there's no one who can really rescue them, including and most especially Kevin Prince Boateng, because the old dog is not going to log too many minutes on the pitch, and what he can do in the dressing room is limited because of that. They're going to get relegated again, but it should be a fun rebuilding phase in the Zweite Bundesliga when they bring Paul Dardai back to coach the team again.
yeah. For his 5th or 6th spell.
He's like the Louis van Gaal of Hertha BSC. Just bring him back in, and then they'll rebuild. I did want to say about Union. German tactic heads are having all of these discussions about how nuanced Union Berlin's tactics are, but they're not. They're not nuanced. They're pretty straightforward. It's just a straightforward 3-5-2 double stack with the wing backs being rotated in and out, and now there'll be some midfield rotations from the buttressing things. Marcus Thuram, Ballum brings up. I'll get to that in just a second. Union are a simple team. I'm not sure. I would say the title contenders are Dortmund, Leipzig, Frankfurt, Bayern right now. Union not in the discussion just yet. Marcus Thuram would have been sold in the January transfer window were it not for some fresh injuries. And yes, he is going to depart on a free this summer, as is Rami Bensebaini. That's pretty much common knowledge. So Gladbach, not in the relegation discussion this year. Next year, most definitely.
Yeah, interesting stuff. We shall see it as the weeks and months go on in regards to the relegation battle. Whether it goes down to the wire like it did amazingly last season, or whether it's kind of locked in and it might just be between a couple of teams as to who's lucky enough to get that relegation playoff match and get another stab at it, so to speak. So we shall see. We'll maybe just close off the last couple minutes of the show just kind of uttering back to the title race then. So Peter, you've added your 4 into the mix. So you think obviously it's between Bayern, Dortmund, Leipzig and Frankfurt. There's 5 points separating those 4 teams, with Union nestled in between that, obviously only a point behind. I mean, it'd be amazing if Union lasted, I don't know, until match week 28 or 9. That's obviously a long time away, just for the sake of the romance of it. But I guess it just to have a title race, gents, is what we're after. Mark, do you think that after what Peter said, Dortmund are the real deal? Are Leipzig still too inconsistent? And will Frankfurt's involvement in Europe stifle their potential title race?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's looking like Dortmund, to be honest, which is quite ironic because I really didn't fancy them in the Hinrunde, but I've been so excited by what they've done so far. I think there's been a mixture of really, really exciting attacking performances like against Freiburg and Augsburg. But then the one that impressed me the most was that win against Leverkusen. I thought they were brilliant in that game. And for me, that was a title-winning performance because they weren't the better team, but they were able to get the win. And I thought tactically they were brilliant in that game against a Leverkusen side who were really, really hot at that time, and they played well in that game too, Leverkusen. There was nothing wrong with their performance. And I thought, for me, that's the kind of win you need if you want to win the title. That's the kind of performance that Bayern Munich put in away from home against top 4 rivals, And for me, that's been missing from Dortmund for probably, 5, 6, even 7 years really now. And that's the first time I've seen it, definitely since we've been doing this show, Rory, that they've been able to go away from home against a side like that and put in a real show. You know, they were resolute, they showed quality. Kobo really showed, you know, what he can do in net. And I just thought that was the one that really made me think, you know, maybe they could win it. And then obviously they backed that up with that brilliant 5-1 win over Freiburg. Obviously they got luck with the decision, the red card, but still, you know, to beat a top 4 challenger 5-1 is still impressive ultimately. And the stars seem to be aligning. You know, obviously Aller is back. They've got a lot of players on form. Julian Brandt is showing his best football for a long time. And I just think, you know, things aren't right at Bayern as well. That's what gives me the most confidence in anything, because things aren't right at Bayern Munich. And as we mentioned, they finally ended that 3-match winless run, but it wasn't in convincing style by any means. And it seems though there's rumblings behind the scenes at Bayern Munich as well that all is not right. So for me, you know, I think Dortmund can do it. I think for Leipzig, I don't know. To be honest, I think they should be able to score a goal past that Cologne side. And I know they had the goal disallowed a little. Obviously, it was the correct decision, but it was very, very narrow. But for me, I wasn't impressed with them against Stuttgart either. I didn't think they were very good in that game. So that's 2 average performances back to back now, and they should be beating that kind of side easily. Really, the teams like Cologne and Stuttgart. So Union, everyone wants Union to be champion, let's be honest. That would be the best story since Leicester City won the Premier League. But, I mean, realistically, top 4 has got to be their goal. Frankfurt are still in with a chance for me as well, but I've not been overly impressed with their performances. They've not hit the ground running since we came back for the Rückrunde for me. I think, obviously, 8 points from 4 games is still good, but they're not at the level they need to be to really push for the title at the minute for me.
Good stuff. Well, I think we've reviewed as much as we possibly can do in what was another fantastically intriguing and entertaining Bundesliga weekend. We shall leave you with excitement ahead of the next match week, which we will be back next Tuesday to review. We will release details of when the fantasy show will come out this week, hopefully after a bit of availability. Jigging around, we'll be able to get that out for you guys as well. So thanks very much to everyone that's tuned in tonight and provided comments and questions. They're always really valued, and thank you to everyone so much for tuning in. So I shall gladly pass over to Mark to finish up the show and to maybe drop one more reminder about the giveaway that Over the Bar are running.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you enjoyed what you saw today, then check out our Twitter feed, which is @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBarExtra. Remember also our giveaway as well. It's a second giveaway in 2 weeks. So yeah, so basically, but this time it's not with Bundesliga boxes, it's with surprise shirts, which is run by the Football League Weekly YouTube show. So basically what they're doing is they're giving away a free football shirt, which can be from anywhere all over the world. But go over to our Twitter to check it out, and more details are explained there. So if you want to enter the draw, then remember to do that and follow the instructions for how to do that. Then, yeah, also remember to check out our main site as well, which is otbfootball.net. So you can see just about everything football related on there. We have women's football, Scottish football, just about every brand of football you can imagine on there. And also remember to check out Petre and Runa's Bulinews as well, who we are in partnership with. Again, you know, you can see everything Bundesliga related on there, really everything. Like, it's very up to date, all the kind of current news, a lot of translations from German publications like Kicker and the Bild, things like that. So yeah, remember but don't read the Bild itself, by the way. Yeah, but just a precursor there. But yeah, some fantastic translations and articles there. And also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as well. So yeah, thanks a lot again for your attention this evening, and we'll see you again for the fantasy show on Thursday. So yeah, ciao. Bye-bye, guys.
Cheers all.